Hi there. My name is Kimoon, and I'm a Western astrologer and Twin Flame channel. And this is a video about the Aries full moon for light workers taking place on October 17th at 7:26 a.m. If you happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States, please check a time zone converter for your local time. Very exciting full moon with a lot of growth opportunities and changes. Few quick announcements. If you're new, welcome. At the end of this, I will do something called First Look, where I'll take you into the next lunation, the new moon in Scorpio, 2 weeks from here, and tell you how the energy connects and moves into that lunation. So listen to the end. There are sessions available on Friday if you'd like to book a reading. They are moving. There are also afternoon sessions if that's easier for those of you in the Eastern Hemisphere. For you, this would be Saturday. And there is a savings code when you book as a new member of my private list for 10% off. Link to join the list and book is below this video. There are limited relationship readings available at this time since there are so many relationship focused energies playing out as of the last eclipse, and we'll certainly see a continuation of that theme at this Aries full moon. So if you'd like me to look at your chart, the chart of someone else for compatibility, your union chart, challenges, and timing, then take advantage of the 30 or 60-minute synastry readings as I do not offer them often. Thank you and welcome to all the new members of Star Club. It is now closed until 2025. So if you would like to learn, practice, and share astrology in a community with me, the waitlist for Star Club is in a link below this video. If you're joining me live, I will be in the chat answering questions as we listen and adding extra insights. So join me there and say hello. And if you have a question, I'm answering them in the comments up to 1 hour after the live broadcast. Thank you to everyone who listens to these announcements at the beginning. I know some people do skip past them, but it is the best way for me to notify you about changes, sales, and options to work together, and ways you can connect with me for free, such as in the comments or in the live chat, which I love doing. Let's get into this full moon in Aries. It is at the 24th degree of Aries. It is conjunct Chiron, you'll see there. And it is opposite the creation goddess there in Scorpio. It is also opposite Juno. We see a square to Mars. We see a sextile to Jupiter. And in addition, we also see a square to Pluto. Dun, dun, dun. And we will also see, okay, I think those are all the aspects. Did I cover them? Yes, I did. Okay, perfect. So it's a lot. It's a lot going on. There is a loose, what we as astrologers call very loose, grand cardinal cross, which can create a lot of tension. So I'm going to walk you through what that looks like and what that means in a moment here. But I think the major thing is that overall, we are going to see that this full moon shows us exactly what's standing between us and the relationship we want. Since Aries, where the moon is at, is the sign of the self, and because the sun illuminates the moon, it's what gives it its brightness, it doesn't have a light of its own, is in the sign of relationships, and it is conjunct Juno, the partnership asteroid. We do see that this full moon is going to illuminate. Opposition is tension, where we have tension or opposition to having healthy, loving, connected partnerships. Okay. I want to say that with Chiron in the mix, any type of wounding that we have is going to make the mirroring quite loud, especially when it comes to the finalization of a commitment, since Juno here represents the officiality of a commitment, like titles and labels or contracts or the marriage bond, official establishment of making a thing real. Now, for some, this will be a transition point and a choice to give up identities. That's the Aries component where the full moon is, of woundedness and rejection. That's the Chironic story, so that you can have the identity you need to thrive in relationship. Some people really can only connect with us as long as we're living and being a version of ourselves that is somehow less than its full potential. There are also people in our lives who will only connect with us when we're striving for a thing but not having it. But once we have it, some of these people will and do roll off because you're just on a different frequency. You'll see this happen a lot if you've had friends who get married or you yourself have been married. Your friendship circle changes. There are connections in our lives that really are only viable when we're living in a less than existence of some capacity. It's not to say that being single is less than, that's not it. But when you're not having the fulfillment of what it is you want, then there's something left to accomplish, and we are not there, quote unquote, yet. So, again, I'll say there are connections in our lives that only exist and are viable when we're in some state of either hoping instead of having. And as long as we're not in our power, but instead examining why we're disempowered, those relationships can thrive. Oh, I'm healing. Oh, I'm figuring it out. Oh, I'm working toward it, as opposed to I have it. This full moon will expose where we can and will only connect with people as long as we're healing versus having. It's also going to expose where we have this problem with other people, where we look out and say, but why not me? Where we harbor envy or jealousy or regret instead of forgiveness. Um, and so this is going to facilitate a major clearing for many of us when it comes to that type of wounding, because the moon also represents mothers and matrilineal lines. For those of us who have experienced any type of abandonment wound or rejection wound from the mother, we will see this show up, especially if it's been playing a role in the way relationships and love have unfolded. Okay, because the Chiron moon conjunction brings that into focus. Where your mother may have gotten stuck in her journey of personal development, havingness, or growth, this full moon gives many the opportunity to make choices that break a generational pattern or a cycle when it comes to relationships, commitments, and partnerships. This will be especially true where there has been a lot of doing or proving or people pleasing to get attention, connection, or security and stability in love. This full moon will give you the chance to release that pattern so that you can have love without compromise. And for many, this will mean that you see the compromise before you see the choice. And that's okay. Triggers will come up, but that's your signal. Oh, there's a choice here. The reassurance is in knowing that we can only release what we can see. And if you can see it and it shows up at this time as a trigger or feeling lonely, rejected, abandoned, misunderstood, left out, all Chiron features. This is the first leg of the Chiron journey, being born into abandonment. If you see these things and they show up at this time, it's because there is a window, a gateway open for them to get released, whether you're an established bond or you're looking for love. Now, for some, releasing it is going to be a matter of making a very critical choice. But for others, you'll find that you need a little help through counseling, coaching, therapy, learning, or education to make the necessary shift. Either one is all good or both, as long as you're able to see what needs to get released and take the step. This will keep you from feeling bullied by the energies of this full moon. So know the stuff will come up, but it's coming up for the purpose of release. Let's get into some of the nitty gritty. That's the overall energy. Let's get into the nitty gritty with these individual planetary aspects in this grand cross. So we see Pluto is square this full moon. This adds a bit of a trigger point in the lunar energy because when Pluto is in any conversation with the moon, deep feelings are involved. Due to the square aspect, these deeper feelings may be the ones that we prefer not to feel and take steps to avoid. whether those steps are interior, such as an addiction, or exterior, such as trying to get others to behave in certain ways so that we don't have to deal with certain deeper emotions. Pluto brings up themes of control, manipulation, as well as shame, rage, and fear. So, whenever we also see in a natal chart Pluto and Chiron speaking to a moon, this can be a person who had an experience with a mother that was a little bit hot and cold or controlling or only active as long as the child was behaving or withdrawing or giving attention based on the child's perfection and their behavior and their performance. And so, if any of you have these sort of themes in your childhood of either neglect and abandonment with your mom, that's Chiron and Moon, or controlling and possessiveness, kind of ownership as an extension of herself from mom, this full moon is going to give you the opportunity to recognize the pattern so you can take the necessary steps to release it from your life. Okay. Now, sometimes, especially with the square, we can go into these patterns without even realizing that there's a deeper issue we're avoiding, only for there to be an outburst, a power struggle, or self destructive reaction to an experience that undermines the very result we're working so hard to create in our lives. So, again, I'll give you an example in the uh, construct of parent and child. Oftentimes, we see this sort of theme unfold of, the controlling parent or the parent who only gives attention when the child is performing correctly, doing exactly what the parent wants them to do. We see this sort of theme really come up when a parent in themselves is deeply unfulfilled, when they themselves feel like their own life isn't what they want it to be. We see parents really turn to, well, I will make sure that my child, you know, has or doesn't have, or gets or doesn't get, or performs or doesn't perform in certain ways. I will bend them to my will. I will make them my image. And so we can carry this pattern later in life with ourselves, where we either become very perfectionistic with ourselves, run into deservability and havingness issues with ourselves when it comes to having love and connection and being able to feel and let in love and support. This Pluto square, Chiron and the moon theme can really open this up. Also, whenever we see Pluto and Chiron in conversation, sometimes a lot of grief can show up in a chart. And by transit, this can be a bit of collective grief for all of us as we really start to work out or work through or deal with themes of things not necessarily going the way we wanted them to go by either this point in our life or this stage in our marriage or this chapter in our career. There can be a sense of grief, but again, this is a good thing because it's showing us where there is a gap between what we're having and what we're capable of having, and allowing us to take the necessary steps to close the gap. Okay. So if there is any sort of outburst or power struggle or self destructive reaction that shows up in relationship to this full moon, know that it's trying to illuminate, here's where there's that gap. Okay. So if this happens, as uncomfortable as this experience might be, consider it a good thing because it's the cathartic release that's needed to find truth, to deal with root causes, and regain our power in situations that may have left us compromised and seeking to control things outside of us instead of seeking to shift things inside of us. Ultimately, things that unfold with this full moon give us the chance to move through the Plutonian transformation cycle in ourselves and in our relationships, and the Chironic transformation cycle. The Plutonian cycle of transformation goes death and ending, integration, and learning, and then rebirth. The chironic transformation cycle goes from abandonment and rejection. Again, there's a period of learning and education. And then there's the point of leadership, healing, and teaching others. So this is really highlighted at this full moon, but there may be a breakdown before there is a breakthrough. Now, some of us, breakdowns already happened. It happened months ago with some of the other transits. And so at this full moon, we get to take a deeper cut at evolving ourselves through that process into light from shadow. Now, we also see a square to Mars. And if you're hearing something that resonates or illuminates, definitely hit that like button for me. Helps the content circulate and people who need it find it. Now, Mars is preparing to go retrograde in Cancer. Okay. And this is going to color the next several months into the new year. We're in the shadow period of this, meaning Mars is walking toward the point at which it will begin to go retrograde. So this is the period before, then it'll stop, turn backwards. This is the actual retrograde period. And then when Mars walks forward again, this is the post shadow period. The entire cycle, shadow to post shadow, is going to take us into next year, into May. But the actual retrograde itself is a December, January, February happening. But because the themes that what ends up happening is we end up doing a lot of revision during the retrograde. In the pre-shadow period, we get a lot of revelation about the things we're going to be working on during the retrograde. The pre-shadow period starts now. So start to pay attention. What are the things that are showing themselves that I need to do Martian things about? Mars is about action. Mars is about motivation. In the light, Mars is about ambition and drive. In the shadow, Mars can become warlike. And this is how we have that reputation for Mars, that it's quote unquote the god of war, but that's not all Mars is. In neutrality, Mars is simply movement. And so what you're going to see, especially at this full moon, because this full moon is in Aries, the governing planet of Aries is Mars. What we have to pay special attention to what it's revealing at this full moon. And so where we see this moon in square with Mars, or Mars in square with this full moon, we're going to get some revelation about where we falsely perceive that we might be stuck. Truth is, we're never stuck. Mars is always in motion. Everything in life is movement. Coastlines move, mountains shift. Nothing is ever stuck. But where we are perceiving stuckness, this is the theme of the full moon that's going to open the gateway for the retrograde to show us, okay, time to make some moves, make some different choices. Okay. So pay attention as the themes, like I said, come up now are going to play a key role in the challenges that need attention during the retrograde from December through February. And they will see final resolution in the period from March to May, that post-shadow period. Now, this combination with Mars and square to this full moon lends itself to power struggles, already mentioned, as Pluto brings up power and fear-related challenges, and Mars deals with our movement. Now, in the light, Mars will, as I mentioned, be all about ambition and drive, but in shadow, the warlikeness can show up, and in tension with Pluto and Chiron conjunct the full moon, tension being the square and the opposition. It's possible we are in for some of Mars's shadow behaviors, which can be defensive, retaliatory, aggressive, reactionary, can be very difficult to find mutual ground or the win-win, with each side feeling like they are so quote unquote right and the other one is so quote unquote wrong. This kind of energy brings up situations that can be very bruising to our egos, especially with the Chiron moon combination in the mix, because it seems to instigate our inner something to prove energy. Can also reveal where we have rigid or black and white thinking on matters that can find middle ground by looking at the gray areas or show us where our non negotiables are and our tough choices need to get made. Now, there's going to be a huge boost in motivation to get things done. That energy will be here. Like, I got to do, I got to do, I got to do, I got to get it done. But it'll be very easy to cross over into steamrolling or bulldozing other people, or having a sense of self righteousness that alienates others' rights in the process, or causing the delivery of the message or the action to overshadow its intention and content. And we're already seeing the impact of this energy in geopolitical events worldwide as Mars settles in for a long opposition to Pluto through its retrograde period. So expect more of this sort of geopolitical tension to come on this front through the first half of next year as Mars moves through this retrograde in opposition to Pluto. For some, this energy will play out in some very personal ways, though, when it comes to money in particular, money owed or loaned, such as debt, legal settlements, taxes, inheritances, and needing to rectify financial matters outside of the money you earn and spend work-wise. But for others, this is where you're going to need to deal with some sort of sticky relationship dynamics that will come to a head. You may already maybe starting to feel that tension internally where you and another person just can't seem to get on the same page. Doesn't always mean the relationship has to end, but the chapter you're in will need to end. So a new chapter can be reborn. Thanks, Pluto, for the Phoenix energy through taking new actions. Thanks, Mars, for the movement energy regarding closing up our worthiness gaps. That's the Chiron energy. For all of us, this configuration will feel quite motivating. And in the light, there's a great resolve to push through barriers and challenges where we may have been previously stalled, blocked, or avoided and procrastinated. This energy pushes us to confront things that may have felt like the big bad wolf within us and outside of us, showing us how powerful we really are. So use the energy with intention. The intensity of this will make it very easy for emotions to come up and get the best of us. As long as we can stay intentional, that doesn't have to happen. Now, we also see this sextile to Jupiter to the full moon. So there's Jupiter in Gemini. This placement is really going to be our saving grace. The sextile gives a lot of positive support to the moon. It allows for optimism that doesn't overdo it. It allows for expansion and growth that doesn't gloss over the details and facts of challenging circumstances or get too big picture. It allows for understanding and cooperation as well. Now, especially in Gemini, Jupiter can become very creative about solutions. It can seek both and opportunities instead of either or. So, when in doubt at this full moon, we do have the grace to pause, look for alternatives before reacting, as this Jupiter is taking a lot of the pressure off and giving us a chance to be forward-looking and positive about the situation while we strive and work toward the best. This aspect gives us a chance to look for the best in ourselves and in our circumstances, which will be so needed given the challenging aspects, especially when it comes to partnership and collaborations. It's Juno, The wife and partner of the zodiac is in opposition to the moon. Further, for those who have been doing the work for a long time, this aspect may just have you show up as a teacher and a guide for those having a harder time with this full moon, especially because Jupiter sextiles Chiron as well. And both Chiron and Jupiter are known teachers in the pantheon. Chiron brings a lot of wisdom. Jupiter brings a lot of faith, hope, and optimism and education. So I really love this. This particular combination works as a carrot and a stick as motivators to get us unstuck. So God's planets are always trying to help us. And this is a lunation that really proves that. They always leave us a foothold for leverage, even in the most challenging times. So I really want to highlight this. We're only really as stuck as we want to be, or as stuck as we choose to be, even if we don't want to be stuck. This is a huge full moon. It's going to offer a lot of people a way out of patterns and processes that have undermined them for a long time. Even if triggers happen to come up, we can navigate this energy with greater hope and optimism for a better tomorrow. There's a ton of liberation here if we're willing to see the truth in the triggers and remember how much the divine design actually has our back. Now, if anything at all comes up and you could use support navigating the triggers and choices of this full moon, then let's chat. Few sessions left this Friday, tomorrow, or Saturday. If you're in the Eastern Hemisphere of the world, you can book with me over at kmoonastro.com. The link is below this video. The signs that are going to feel this full moon in Aries the most are, of course, Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn, Sagittarius, and Leo, especially if you were born in the second month of your sign. So that would be like the Aries born in April, the Libras born in, I guess that's October, the Cancers born in July, and the Capricorns born in January, and so forth. Let's take a look at what else is happening elsewhere in the sky at this lunation. Again, if you heard something that resonates or illuminates, definitely hit that like button and subscribe if you're new. Welcome. We do see Mercury in Scorpio. Hello, friend. And Mercury is conjunct the creation goddess. Mercury is consciousness and communication. The creation goddess there is all about creativity and new beginnings. And this will help with creative thinking and building something out of nothing. This will also support us with resurrecting old ideas that it's time to implement. There will be a lot of new insights that put together deep ideas and information that have been hard to coalesce. And this is a great aspect to use to your advantage if you need to develop creativity or strategy for any purpose at work or personally. So definitely use this if you need to do some deep thinking or strategic thinking. That Mercury is in a loose trine to Saturn, who's retrograde there in Pisces. This aspect perfects slightly after the full moon, so giving us an extended energy here. And usually this gives a very positive mental energy for dealing with things that require insight, foresight, thoughtfulness, and like I mentioned, strategy and planning. Because Mercury loves to go deep in Scorpio and can be a bit of a detective, there is an influence of being able to see behind the scenes, catch every detail. This can be used to our advantage in any sort of procedural dealing having to do with science, legal matters, contracts, finance, research, and more. So take advantage of this if you're a paperwork procrastinator or you're in school and need to produce work. This will help you get it done. The only challenge I see with this is with Saturn retrograde. It can be hard to know where to stop once you get started. So if you know you're the kind of person who can get lost in a perfectionistic rabbit hole or go way too deep into to the right on things, you'll find phoning a friend to double check limits may help you. Also, paying attention to time, because Saturn governs time, so that you're not overdoing it in one area as a way to avoid something that needs attention in another area. Okay. And this will also help too with a Jupiter uh, square to Neptune, which we'll talk about momentarily, because Jupiter is also speaking to that Saturn in a square. We get Saturn's energy really creating a lot of balance for us if we use it correctly. Now, we also see Venus having some rich conversations at this particular full moon. So let's get into it. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about her, and she's only heightening the way that this full moon speaks to relationship stuff coming up. We already see the sun and Juno in Libra, and Juno is the partnership asteroid. Her lower octave is Venus, Venus being about love. Juno is where the commitment happens. Venus being about chemistry. Juno is where the marriage actually happens. So both of them are having some very unique conversations. Juno is featured at the full moon because she's directly opposite. Venus is having some other conversations. Let's get into it. She is trine Neptune here at the 27th degree of Pisces, and Neptune is retrograde. So we see those two in conversation. Let's deal with that. This can bring a harmonious emotional tone to the experiences of this full moon. But Venus doesn't always do her best, feel her best, give her best in Scorpio. And Neptune retrograde will bring more of the internal elements of Neptune's spiritual nature forward. Now, this combination can bring a level of emotional alienation, feeling a bit separated from others. There's a desire for connection, but it can struggle to manifest when Venus and Neptune are in connection. It's a bit of ethereal longing energy. It's that perfectly beautiful song that has the lyrics that are full of loss. It's that rainy day that has the gorgeous light in just the right way. This energy supports creativity and art, but it also gives melancholy to the beauty. And this can be supportive for reflection, which is good. We need that, but it can also be easy to fall into hopelessness. So stay mindful of and catch yourself if you know you're prone to going in that direction. Transits like this one give us space to connect to our humanity and the humanity of others through heart softening. And this will allow us to have greater compassion and the ability to tap into a collective oneness and any collective heartbreak or suffering for the purposes of remembering how we all go through it. We're all one here on earth. We're not alone, and we connect through things like art or music or simply being with someone, even though we might be having a hard time. We also see a trine here to Mars, to that Venus. Venus trine Mars adds an element of the emotionally passionate physical connection. Typically see Venus Martian conversations in the mix when two people have a lot of chemistry between each other. This brings out our capacity to move on big feelings, to not repress or run from our feelings, with both of them in water signs, which governs the processing through emotions. Because Mars is also under the influence of Neptune and Pisces, here, there's a lovely humanitarian, compassionate, altruistic energy to this as well. And together, in a grand water trine to Venus here, on a personal level, this configuration speaks to a ton of tender, romantic, deeply spiritual experiences in love. For some, this may only take place in the dream state, but for others, This may be where you and a person are cocooned together for a few days. It's a very yummy energy. And still, for others, this is an intense, deeply bonded, romantic, and spiritual connection with one person that goes from 0 to 100 fast, fast, fast. Like it can, like whirlwind romance, kind of get caught up. Venus is also in sextile here to our friend Pluto. And this deepens the already mentioned energy around love and connection and intensifies it. It concentrates it. On the shadow side of the spectrum, Pluto and Venus in conversation and tension, they do bring an obsessive energy. They also can create the right breeding ground for secret love affairs or secret financial dealings. And with Pluto opposite Mars here, we can see action taken on these energies. So just stay mindful if you have, a predatory influence in your life. I don't often, in fact, I've never in all my years reading given a warning like this. But if you know you have, like, let's say a stalker or an ex that struggles to maintain correct boundaries with you once you've set them, this is when you want to take some extra precaution, especially if they've had violent tendencies in the past. Additionally, if you are the person who can get so emotionally excited and activated by someone who has expressed a clear desire for either no contact, no communication, or distance, this full moon can stimulate you emotionally in a way that could cause you to cross the line on an impulse because you may feel like it's your right to say or do something in another person's space, despite their request that you don't. So, in both cases, take the needed precautions to stay safe and get a healthy outlet for any big feelings that may arise. Talk to a therapist, a friend. On the light side of this aspect, though, this energy can take a love connection very deep and make it very transformative and regenerative for both people. It will instigate a desire and a need in both people to want something beyond the surface, to connect and bond at the level of the soul. Both people may desire to feel fully seen by and received by the other person. And this is a great energy for revealing things that may have been on your heart or your fears or secrets that you know you need to get off your chest for the health of your connection. This is the right time to do that. Okay. Now, again, if you need any help with this, you know where to find me. I'm over at kmoonastro.com. And I report on both the light and the shadow of all the aspects and energies so that you understand you're not bound by negativity. We're not bound by the worst of it. We can get the best of it, but it is a matter of us in our own solar energy, our only own God-given light, making the choice to do so. But when you can see the choice clearly, it's when you have most access to making the choice. Now, we also see, oh my goodness, Venus, you are a busy, busy lady this lunation. We also see you in opposition to Uranus there. And this can create some unexpected shocks and surprises in both love and money, things that Venus governs, specifically since Taurus and Scorpio are our finance and uh, connection related signs in many ways in the third dimension. Taurus also deals with sensuality and the body, Scorpio with the actual act of consummation. There's certain words I can't say on YouTube, otherwise I would just say it plain, but I think you know what I mean. So unforeseen events can take place pertaining to these things. Now, whatever comes up, it does look like it may be intense because of Pluto aspecting Uranus and both Uranus and Pluto speaking to Venus. My. It could produce some strong feelings and reactions, to put it mildly. Know that if there is a financial surprise that shows itself, the money will be there to solve the challenge. And if it's a romantic shock, it does look like it will stir up the deep truth within you that will help you move through it. Now, I will say this is a time when secrets can get accidentally exposed or found out in both finance and love. And if you're planning some sort of brand new beauty thing, like a tattoo or a hairstyle that you've literally never done before, or like a procedure, I would wait and give it 2 weeks until Venus is out of position with these two. If you're planning some sort of romantic surprise, like a proposal, again, if you can, I'd recommend just giving it 2 weeks, 10 to 14 days if you can, for this transit to pass. There is a chance, given both Uranus and Pluto's aspects, that any sort of surprise or brand new thing that you're doing, there's a chance it could go in ways that you hadn't anticipated with this transit and be received in ways that aren't what you imagined. Okay. So just keep that in mind. Now, if anything comes up for you that you weren't anticipating, please note there's always a divine lesson and an opportunity for elevation in it. But if you're feeling stuck or you can't see it, or you're back and forth in your mind, there's double mindedness, which Jupiter and Gemini can absolutely create. And it is aspecting this full moon, both the moon and the sun. If you've got this sort of back and forth and you don't know what to choose, I recommend you book one of the 60-minute personal readings. You can pause this video and book at the link below. There are a few sessions left tomorrow. Even just a 30-minute can help you navigate off of a challenging road by giving you the clarity you need to move through this experience with more empowerment. We see as well, moving off of Venus, but into her higher octave, Juno, we see Juno trining Jupiter at this full moon. Now, normally, this is an energy that allows for coming together, especially with both of them in air signs. It allows communication and partnerships to flow. It makes it easy to see eye to eye and get on the same page. Normally, harmonious aspects between Juno, the wife, and Jupiter, the husband, facilitate ease and coming together in partnership. But under the influence of this particular full moon energy, this is made challenging only because Juno is opposite Chiron. Jupiter is retrograde, and this can make her energy slightly triggered, more sensitive, and easily withdrawn where the ego is concerned. And we need our ego. Ego is what allows us to move forward. And we do see Juno speaking to Mars. She's in square to Mars, and that makes movement necessary, movement forward necessary, but it may be movement that's a little reactionary or sideways, especially the other elements influencing Mars, such as Pluto and Chiron. Now, overall, because Jupiter is retrograde, Jupiter is in this conversation. The trine to Juno in and of itself can lend itself to things being a little bit more withdrawn, sensitive, slightly triggered, where the ego is concerned, as I mentioned. Jupiter is also square to Neptune here. And in and of itself, Jupiter and Neptune squares lend themselves to a lot of introspection, and at the extreme, escapism. So, is there a potential for harmony and love? Yes, absolutely, with them in trine. Will it take more work to overcome internal challenges given everything else going on at this full moon? Also, yes. Let's talk a little bit more directly about Jupiter square Neptune. This configuration can lead us to ameliorate and soothe our triggers and stress through escapist tendencies like addictions or romanticizing our situations or romanticizing the people we're dealing with. it can really blind us to some of the facts in our face. So this adds context and color to the entire conversation of this full moon. Again, it will be important to look at emotional challenges and make choices that honor where we want to grow so we're not repeating cycles kind of absent-mindedly. We see Jupiter square to Saturn as well. This is a long-term, quite sobering influence. So, whereas the previous transit can cause some reactionary or escapist behaviors to flare up, this configuration, adding Saturn to the mix, can bring them into balance. Now, this square allows us to settle down when it comes to things that have been excessive and start to bring things under control, like spending or excessive exercising or working or, there was always people at when I used to work full time in a corporate job, there were always people who it didn't matter what was on their plate. They always had to be talking at work. So I could never get anything done because they always wanted to talk and interrupt. If there's like, they were like avoiding the pressure of their own work. Anything like that, if you know you're that person in your office, right? This energy can really, the Saturn square Jupiter, Jupiter square Saturn, this can bring that into better balance for you. Okay. And the combination of Jupiter square Saturn and Jupiter square Neptune, because it's kind of right in between the both of them, degree wise, this can really create like a bit of a ping ponging in our own fields where we go back and forth between feeling optimistic and pessimistic. Like we have it all under control and then we don't. Like, oh, the money will be there. I don't have to worry about it. And then it's not. The relationship's fine. I don't have to do anything. It'll work itself out. But then things that seem to demand attention and corrective action pop up. Now, this is all part of this period, which, to be honest, lasts through the end of this year in varying degrees of intensity. The best thing to do with this is to stay cautious and conservative without limiting your potential. It's not about playing it safe and staying in your box. It's about being discerning and taking measured action and measured steps. So take advantage of the opportunities to take things in the direction you want them to go, but don't take for granted when things show up for correction that you can either wait it out or it'll just get magically resolved. This is the time to look for where your action can bring things into balance. All in all, this full moon does seem to spur us toward greater truth and connection. It also gives us what we need in order to make necessary changes in love and financial matters. Though there are surprises and perhaps some uncomfortable feelings that may show up, they do seem to help us really get to the truth of our situation and the truth of who we are and the truth of what we want. And in many cases, even help us clarify our next step in getting there, especially if you felt like I don't have any options or I've been stuck. This is a full moon where you'll be able to see them much clearer. You may not like the option, but you'll be able to see it. This full moon gives us a unique chance to grow by facing some things in the mirror that may have held us back. I really want to make sure I hone in on the point. The planets are not out to get us. They're not trying to punish us. They are not trying to repress or hold us back. They're really trying to help us grow into our God self incarnate so that we have the capacity to be all that we can be. So we've got this. And if you're joining me live and you happen to be a twin flame or consider yourself in a soul connection, join me for the live broadcast of this lunar update for twin flames and divine counterparts right after this. If you've heard something that resonates or illuminates, definitely hit that like button. And if you're new, subscribe. I'm here at the new and full moon, bringing in that intel so that you know how to work with the energies so the energies are not working you. Let's do first look now I've just pulled up the full moon in Scorpio. This is my first look at the energy, and I'm going to give you my first impression. This new moon in Scorpio takes place on November 1st, 8:46 a.m. If you happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States, please check a time zone converter for your local time. I also just want to make sure to extend a very heartfelt, please be safe to the the star family that we have both in the Middle East and the star family in the south of the United States, between extreme weather and extreme events that have unfolded in the last couple of lunations, having to do with both the eclipses and these transits. I know many of you are are experiencing unprecedented circumstances. So do what you can to stay safe and secure your safety for your loved ones. Definitely follow whatever guidance your officials are giving you to secure your safety, and know that I will be here for you. This channel will be here for you on the other side as you move through these extraordinary events as we close out 2024. Let's take a look at this Scorpio new moon taking place on November 1st. Where is it? Okay, right. Ninth degree of Scorpio. There's the new moon. Let's see who the conversations, who's having conversations with a new moon? Who wants to talk? Who wants to talk? Let's see. Looking around the wheel. Okay, we have a trine from retrograde Saturn at the 12th degree of Pisces. We also see loose connection from the creation goddess and the conjunction from at the first degree of Scorpio. Interesting. Okay, so we see a square from Chariklo and we see a sextile from Pholus. Wow, 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 wow. These are the major influences. Most of it, except for Saturn, is coming from these. So Centaur, Pholus, asteroid Chariklo. Interesting. What stands out to me as the dominant energy, of course, is always the planets. We see Saturn there in Pisces. We see Saturn trine this full moon. And with Saturn trine the full moon, this speaks to some stability coming in. What's interesting, though, is that this seems to be some sort of establishment of something new in some way. We know this is quite close to the United States election cycle that takes place on November 5th. Everyone in the US, if you haven't already registered, please vote. Please register. It doesn't matter what side you're on, just participate in the process. Just a gentle reminder there. It is your country and your process, and you can have an effect on it. Interesting. Gosh, I'm gonna have to really sit with this. I remember looking at this time period, the start of the year, and those of you who are on my live mini reading channel, I do live mini readings where you can do a one question live reading with me periodically. If you're not on that channel, the link to join it and subscribe is below. It's a separate channel from this one. And you can also get on my private list and you'll be notified 24 hours in advance. So you can make it a point to join live if you want to. I remember speaking to the folks who normally join me over there at the start of this year. They're asking me about the second half of the year. And I remember saying, it is hard for me, like I'm not getting a clear window into that period of time. It's hard for me to see into the election. It's difficult for me to see what unfolds in this period of time during the year as we get into the late October, November, and December period of time. The energy was just blank for me. And this is giving me very similar vibes as an intuitive astrologer. I definitely use my intuition to tap into what the planets are telling me. They really speak to me in an intuitive way. But what I will say is there does seem to be some establishment of some order, some groundedness, some clarity, some emotional fortitude and strength does seem to show itself here for all of us collectively. There's other aspects that I see going on that don't aren't a feature with the full moon. Some things going on with Pluto and Mars and Uranus and Neptune, which seem to heighten a lot of the tension that we may be experiencing geopolitically, as I mentioned. But they are not necessarily speaking to the new moon. They are separate from the moon itself. And so we'll talk about that then. But overall, I would say because Saturn's retrograde in Pisces, the vibe I'm getting is that where from the full moon in Aries, where things have been out of control, if we do not take advantage of the full moon in Aries energy to check ourselves, to rein it in, whether the out of controlness is in a relationship that's in a toxic spin cycle, a relationship to body, and physical health and well being, where you know there's something you need to shift and you're just not doing it, avoiding, or money, or something else in the family, and you're just refusing to intervene, just looking the other way. This Scorpio new moon actually really has the potential to take what's out of control and then solidify it as an identity, as a habit, as a pattern, as a routine, as the establishment of the next cycle. Because of the way it's speaking to Saturn, Saturn normally wants to facilitate some boundaries and groundedness, but in retrograde, Saturn struggles to deliver on the boundaries and groundedness and structuring process, especially in water sign Pisces. We can really see emotions override common sense in certain ways. But that's only exacerbated by the fullest energy that's here, which is speaking in harmony to Saturn. And fullest is toxicity and patterning. And then we have the square to the transiting nodal axis, making it be that the choice to do nothing is really the choice to keep things as they have been if it doesn't work for you. So, this period post eclipses, the 30 days after that first eclipse, November 17th, the 60 days after it, that eclipse was September 17th. So, getting into November 17th will take us to 60 days. And then that second eclipse on October 2nd, November 1st is going to be the first 30 days out. Like eclipses really open up portals and gateways where timelines can be manipulated in the third dimension. We have the capacity by shifting and tweaking within ourselves to establish something new external to us. And so as we move into this period, um, the refusal to establish something new will this configuration looks like it really locks in the old for the next cycle. So there's a real kind of like as we move between lunation to lunation, the time when you're hearing this message is the time to do what you got to do to make the necessary changes. If you need to speak to a lawyer to deal with legal matters, do it. You need to talk to your spouse to deal with relationship matters, deal with it. You need to talk to, a friend to shore up foundational issues in the friendship where it's been imbalanced, handle it. You got to deal with your kids and their schooling, do it. Do not use this energy thinking I'll just wait for it to pass or see what unfolds. Waiting will lock in the repetition of a cycle. That much I do see here. But the rest of it, I'm gonna have to really sit with this energy and look at this, study this chart to get a sense of what the planets want me to reveal. Um, because it doesn't look like a bad period. It just looks like the establishment of something getting locked in. Um, and it could be hard to shift, especially because we have so much fixed energy, and the fixed energy really likes to hold on to a thing. Interesting. Let's just take a quick look at that Aries full moon again. Yeah, this one has a lot of cardinal energy, and cardinal energy responds not through holding on to things, but cardinal energy responds through initiating something new. This is the Aries full moon. So, this is our time to establish something new and different, to begin again, to lean into movement. Because whatever we move into after this, it does look like there's some sort of establishment of that thing, whether it's a positive habit, a positive turn of events, or it is something that is less than how we would want it to be. It does look like it self establishes at the new moon in Scorpio. All right, that's what I got. Thanks so much for liking, sharing, and subscribing. It's always an honor to be here with you guys. I look forward to our next lunar update. And you know where to find me if you would like to book a reading. I'm over at kmoonastro.com. The link is below this video. Take great care and bye for now.